So this is going to be a documentation of my experience with Tynee as a company and the board, which looks like the Tynee Ultra, but is not. It is in fact the Tynee Mini, the Mini 1, and I eventually got the Tynee Ultra deck mainly because I could not, like as a first-time e-skater, I just could not deal with the harshness of the Mini deck and just how stiff the ride was, because after a couple of kilometers, maybe 2 or 3 at the most, my feet would just get absolutely beat and very, very sore. So there was nothing I could really do with that. The main reason I got this board, or the Mini 1 especially, was at the time it was the cheapest belt drive, new and locally deliverable board that I could get. So those things for me were huge, because at the end of the day I wanted to make sure I could actually get the board reliably. And once it shipped and the tracking details started to update, I looked up the courier because I wasn't very confident with them, and then that was a mistake because I saw they had 1,000 plus 1-star ratings. So whether I was actually going to get my board or not was another story, but eventually it did arrive a day early, and I only found out because someone was at home, because otherwise the tracking details updated maybe 6 hours later. So it wasn't great. But the board came, it was amazing. It was just, like, it was very easy to store, very easy to carry around. Like if I needed to cross a road quickly, I could just kick it up with the kicktail and then off we go. It was just a bit too uncomfortable. I could not. Like I don't have a big history with skating. I don't have a big history with e-skating. So this was still very new to me and I was not adjusted to it. I reached out to the subreddit and everyone was basically recommending Cloud Wheels at the time. So I went to Tynee's website and just double checked with Aiden and the customer service at Tynee, just to make sure everything was going to be fine, if I was missing anything, if I needed to order anything else with it. And basically they're like, look, for your issue, we can absolutely sell you Cloud Wheels, but we think it would be better for you to get the Tynee Ultra deck and just do a deck swap, because it'll be cheaper and it'll be a lot more comfortable. So I decided to go with that. Again, you had me at cheap, and this deck was great. Like it was super flexible, even as I just ride on this now with a wide stance, because for me, a wide stance makes me feel comfortable. Whether I'm doing weightlifting or wrestling or anything like that, I've always needed a wide stance. The board after that, like after I got the better deck, the flexible deck, it was so much more comfortable. It's been a joy to ride, and I've racked up maybe 350 kilometers on it, which is nowhere near as much as some of you guys on the subreddit would have done, or just people with e-skates in general. But things are progressing along. Like private e-scooters have just been included in a trial that's, trying to work out how we can integrate PEV safely with the rest of society, and, trying to not add more confusion into the mix and just make this so it's, easily and safely done. Hopefully that'll make things a bit better in the next 4 or 5 months. So then all was good with this board. I was happy with the value for money I got. I was happy with the customer service I got. I was happy with the deck that I got. I was just happy riding around. And then a lot of different manufacturers started putting out these polyurethane wheels with like rubber outsides. And I thought, all right, that could be interesting. So when Tynee released their Hydro wheels, I decided to give it a go. And the main benefit of these is for grip and performance in wet weather, which is a bit of a waste on me because I hate having to clean my board after the wet weather and after there's like slug and slime and worms and other junk that gets splattered everywhere. So I stick to going in the dry. Now in the dry, these things perform great. There's so much grip that in some spots where I've usually done turns and what have you, I have to lean a lot less, just because it allows me to push just that much harder and I don't have to bother, and it just gives me grip for days. It also is slightly more comfortable, which Tynee mentioned it would be, but it's honestly nothing to write home about. I would not compare them to Cloud Wheels, even though I never used Cloud Wheels or pneumatics. but there is a definite noticeable increase in comfort. You still get affected by vibration and all that sort of stuff, but it's not as bad. Honestly, it's not as bad. The other thing was the hit to range. Now, Tynee claimed that there was maybe a 10% reduction in range. I am not a particularly trusting person by nature, so when people start telling me things like that and putting numbers to things, that usually sends up like red flags for me, where I'm like, okay, let's see. So I tested it out, and to be fair, I did 2 different tests. One was at speed mode 1 all the way, maybe maxed out at 15 kilometers an hour. I did this at all times. I did the same routes both times, and I tried to keep everything as range friendly as possible. And I got about 33 kilometers, I feel, with the normal 90mm polyurethane wheels. But then when I switched to these, I got 29 kilometers with the 10% vibration alert that went off on my remote. So realistically, I was fairly satisfied with the range that I got. It wasn't like a massive deficit, but it was enough where you think, okay, for the comfort that I'm getting, the range trade-off, and the performance I'm getting, it's a good balance. Value-wise, it's a good balance. The only issue I had with these was when I was trying to install it, because I'm not particularly clever and I get super excited, was I mixed up the belts that came with it. So I was trying to put the old belts for the pulleys that came with the 90mm wheels, and you can imagine how well that went, or didn't go rather. So once I got that figured out, these have been great ever since. Just to touch on some of the negatives, which they honestly aren't major negatives, they're more just nitpicky things. So the issues that I have had with this board, again, originally it was the comfort from the short deck, which was extremely stiff, but that was just something that I couldn't really handle as a first timer, I guess, with e-skating. But again, when that issue was raised with customer service, I got arguably the best solution that I could have asked for. The other thing was not something that really happened until recently that I've really noticed, because I've had this board for about 9 months now, and I've noticed that when the battery is about, the board battery is around 50% or a bit less, that the top speed drops. So it goes from, in speed mode 4, 38 kilometers, maybe 40 if I tuck and do everything right. It'll go down to about 30 kilometers. Now, these aren't name brand cells, these aren't Samsungs, these aren't Molicel. I don't expect them to perform the same, but I don't know whether this is normal for these sorts of cells or not. They're still fine. Like, I still haven't had any range issues. I haven't had major voltage sag, like when it's gotten close to 20%, 10%. I haven't had any issues where it's, you know, really sagging hard and I'm struggling to get 15 kilometers an hour out of it or something like that. So this might just be normal wear and tear for the age, the brand, the type of cells these are, and I guess that just can't be helped. But hopefully it'll, you know, keep kicking on for another 6 to 9 months, and hopefully by then the laws around PEVs in this country will change, or this state especially, and we'll be able to maybe upgrade to a Explorer, or who knows. Again, not something major. Another issue that I had was with the bushings and the pivot cups. Now, these started squeaking like who knows what, and it was kind of annoying. I tried again from the eSkate subreddit to put some soap shavings, but that lasted very, very little, and the squeaking was right back again. So I tried checking with some of the guys I work with, and one of them was like, look, try graphite powder. And with the graphite powder, after about a week, 2 weeks, the squeaks came back again. So I thought, all right, maybe I didn't do it properly. I added a bit more, because I was a bit stingy with the first lot. And it's been about 2 months now, and there's been no hint of squeaks whatsoever No matter how hard I carve, no matter how much I bounce around and go off-road and do whatever. But again, minor issue fixed. Maybe, I think in future, Tynee is trying to work with Riptide to maybe come up with something like that. So that would be a handy optional extra to have. And again, not a major issue. The shipping, however, I would feel very nervous about getting a board, say for like 2,000 Australian dollars or whatever it's going to end up, and having it arrive with a 1-star rated courier, as opposed to something like Australia Post or Star Trek Express or TNT, or at least somewhere where I can find a major office and go there and be like, listen, where's my things? So I hope that as an added shipping option for local deliveries, that would be something that can be done. Just more for peace of mind. As far as reliability issues go, honestly, I have had zero. This board has been damn near bulletproof. I have even scraped the front trucks a little bit because I mounted a curb wrong. I have had no issues with them. I have seen no cracking, no nothing. When I did change the wheels, I tightened up all my nuts around the mounts and everything else where the trucks are. Maintenance of this board, I just mainly give it a clean after I come back from every ride. So I'll get out the drill brush and I'll, give it a good thorough rub down, especially the wheels, the motors, the trucks. Sometimes I'll find like a spider or so hanging on for dear life, so I can't stand that. Full on rip down, alcohol cleaning, and just giving the board a good fine tooth comb clean. That I'll probably do around August or something, because it'll be bucketing down with rain around then anyway. So it'll probably be the best time for a full on bit of maintenance. But as we're heading into winter now, it's still staying somewhat dry, which hopefully it works, because I can take the cold. The motorcycle jacket helps with that, but the wet, nah. But again, no issues, minimal maintenance, just trying to keep it clean, keeping things tidy, looking after what you hope will look after you. I honestly can't say anything negative about Tynee as a company, about my board as a board. I did try, one of the other things was the responsiveness of Tynee, which has been pretty good, especially on the subreddit, whether the WhatsApp or the website, they're usually pretty active. There is a Facebook group, but I don't think they're as active on that. But before I bought a board, I reached out to a couple of different manufacturers, just sent them like messages, be like, hey, I'm trying to get a bit more information on your board and I have some questions. And Tynee was literally the only ones that actually got back to me within, say, a week. Some of them didn't even bother getting back to me. So at least I know, all right, if there's no local service and support for these things, at least I can get in touch with someone, I can get on a call with someone, I can send a video to someone, and they'll work with me to try and sort this thing out and get me back on the road again. That pretty much concludes my not so Tynee talk. Hopefully you got something useful out of it. Maybe you'll get a Tynee board in the future, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll get something nice for yourself. Who knows? Just enjoy yourself, have fun, live your life, don't go hurting people, and just be happy.